All right, I feel that part of the room is really neglected. I'm sorry, I have to manually, no technology here, I have to manually move so I can't wander over there, so sorry about that. But the slides will be interesting. So, wow, that's two great speakers to follow on from, so I hope they do this justice. So where I'm coming from today is I'm going to ask a question. Is there a need or is there a place for BIM in the operate phase of the building life cycle? And I'm going to give a kind of IBM journey on this and a kind of IBM slant on this, but hopefully we'll come out with the right answer at the end. So everybody knows BIM is a process. It's about collaboration, really importantly. It's about sharing the knowledge, information, about bringing people together. And around the table, every stakeholder should be involved at the beginning. But I would guess 9 times out of 10, the people who operate the building are not sitting at the table when all this conversation starts around BIM. I mean, all the people in the room, if we can have a show of hands, who actively goes out and finds the people who do the facilities maintenance of the thing that you're producing, the thing that you're building at the beginning? How many times is that person there? Oh, that's great. Yeah, few. 4 or 5, 6, 7. BAM are not allowed to answer that question. So, but when you look, this is a McGraw-Hill study, 2004. You can look at this on the internet. Owners are really starting to see the benefit of BIM. Okay, so if you look here, I mean, the language that's coming out is it's better, there's fewer problems, we get to see what the end point is, it's beneficial, we reduce costs. And again, you know, the single greatest benefit, coordination, you know, long-term management, visualization. I mean, I love it when I'm in these meetings because I can't read a 2D CAD drawing and interpret what that's going to look like at the end. So if you come and you show me a flat 2D drawing and you say, that's what you're going to get, it's kind of like, okay, I can't read it, and I'll hands up, I can't. Show me a 3D visualization of that 2D, and I'll go, oh yeah, no, I understand it, I see where I'm going. And this is what owners are like. They're not architects, they're not people, as was said earlier on, who are embedded in the industry. They don't need to be, but they need to understand what they're going to get at the end of the process. And the BIM process allows that visualization aspect for these people to see what they get. And as you can see in the UK, that's borne out as one of the big wins. So interestingly, Alan, the CISA survey that just was produced, there are no FM people involved, and that might be something that we look at in the future, involving building owners into these surveys to get the awareness going. And I know we're on a train line, and I know the construction industry are grasping this with both hands, and engineering companies, etc. But you know, it would be really great to see facilities maintenance, facilities management people involved in these studies so that we can understand what their perspective is. So I don't know how many people know Birgitta Foster, but she's a real advocate for BIM in the operate phase. And you know, this is a really great quote. I think this is from that McGraw-Hill study. You know, the basic problem that owners see is that they're very data-centric, while contractors are more model-centric. So this is about the owners need the data from the model, and it needs to be accurate and consistent. So as part of the journey, you know, when the construction company, engineering companies do a great job and they've got all their beautiful models and et cetera, then you know, the owners have to take ownership of that information, of that hard copy, and a lot of time they still are mandating hard copy O&M manuals, which means that a really smart engineering person has to go and collect all this information and ship it over on the back of a truck, and then they have to take ownership of it and put it on a shelf, and it's absolutely crazy. And then when they've got that information, if they do have an asset management type solution, a CAFM or a IWMS solution, integrated workplace management solution, some poor soul then, who has probably got a degree in engineering, has to then manually input the information from the hard copy manuals that some really equally clever person has printed off for them and handed over to them, and they have to do this, and it normally takes a year plus to do this. And of course, there's lots of errors. So then there's incomplete transfer of that information, something might be missing, you might miss something, we're all human. And then you get duplication. So, you know, somebody's gone out to the web, they've maybe saved the file on their laptop, and then they've printed it off, and they might send the file. And there's all this duplication and copies of information. You know, if, okay, he needs a copy, she needs a copy, they need a copy, it's just nonsense. And then where do you store it, right? So then you've got all this hard copy information, where do you put it? Okay, you need a room for this stuff. And then the time, okay? So everybody, you know, has no, I spoke to a guy actually, and I said, you know, virtual handover of all this documentation is where it's going. Oh no, he said, no. I want my engineers to manually input all that information in. I said, okay, obviously you don't do that as your job, all right? So you're sitting up here in your ivory tower and all these poor people are doing it. It takes forever, you know, it takes years to do this. So things are set to change, right? So this is a little boy with his finger in the plug hole, in the dam, you know, in the hole in the dam. So if you're not thinking about this from an owner's perspective, from a facilities management perspective, you know, you're going to get swallowed by this. You're just going, this tsunami of information is going to come flowing your way. You're not going to know what to do with it. And if you look at the asset life cycle, you know, all the people, I looked at the delegate list, and the vast majority of people in this room are in that 6 months to 5 year phase, okay, doing brilliant work, you know, digitizing the industry, doing fantastic things, producing lovely models, blah, blah, blah. It's 20, 40, 60, 100 years. Look around, you know, Dublin City. These buildings, these structures, you want them to last forever, you know, unless you're in a high turnover kind of environment, like maybe a shopping centre or something like that. You want these infrastructure buildings to last a long time, and that is where the money is spent, and that's where you need this information. That's where you need to keep the models alive, the whole BIM process flowing through. So, I mean, you must have seen this ad nauseum, but, you know, you kind of have these silos, and you get to, you know, detailed design, and it gets whacked over the fence, and whatever you've designed may be changed because the cheaper, you know, HVAC system, air conditioning unit is cheaper from another vendor, so, okay, let's just save money there, and we'll look great, and we'll buy that one. But actually, to own and operate that cheaper piece of equipment is going to cost you loads more money in the long run, and you're probably going to have to replace it after 5 years anyway. So there's all these silos, then it's over the wall. And obviously this is where we're trying to get to. This is the kind of utopia that everybody's talking. And that actually, the requirements, the management of the requirements right at the beginning, is you feed back into that as part of being a building owner. So the mistakes can be rectified, or the mistakes, or the, you know, the great designs can be applauded. And though when you change your office, when you're in that kind of change cycle of changing the use of your office, you can understand the load of the HVAC system, so that if you, you know, make it into smaller compartments, that you have the capacity to bring in more people, that it's legal, that you can do that. So it's all about feeding back in and having this closed loop. And if you overlay this onto the REBA work process, and I stole this, and I hope I don't get into trouble with Mervyn, right? Because I took his flow, and I've got the REBA, you know, work plan there, and you can see, you know, we're belting down the road on these first 6 processes, and then it's kind of like over the fence for the 7th, which is like the longest period of time. So it's about getting good data and the flow of the information, flow of that data from one person to the next. You know, people can access it. I mean, the points that were made just now are bang on, that you make this open source, that people can access data when they need it. They don't need to know all the networking issues or anything underneath the covers. They just need the data they need to get to, and so that you can operate and maintain a building effectively. So we use, this is, I just threw this in just so in case people are interested, to do virtual handover. You can export the information via a COBE format, and you can push that into a tool like Maximo or Tririga. We have 2 solutions you can do this with, right? And instead of taking a year, this takes 48 hours. You know, you have to have good quality data. The designers, the people who are drawing those models, have to put the attributes in there. If everything is in there, you've got good data quality, it's like you're down to hours instead of years. And then the real beautiful, the wow factor, because these asset management tools are pretty flat, they're a bit boring, is the visualization. So within context, if there's an unplanned event, you can get an alert on your mobile device, and you can see where that piece of equipment is in the building. So you're not doing, as was mentioned earlier, the to-ing and fro-ing, backwards and forwards. You know, I need to go here, who do I need to contact? You know what is wrong, you know where it is, you know who's available to fix it, you know if you have the parts installed, you know the warranty information, you know the health and safety plan. All of this information, you know what tools you need to take. Do I need to take a ladder? Where is it? Is it up in the ceiling? You know, all of this stuff. Visualization is really bringing the industry alive. So where does this information come from? So if you use the REBA process again, at this kind of develop design phase, if you're really visionary and you really want to involve the right people right at the beginning, you can start to populate these asset management tools right at this time. And then through the visualization piece, you can start to have your avatars walking through the building and go, okay, well, if you put that there, that's not enough space for my guys to get in and fix that. So dead simple stuff like that. And then by the time you're at the technical design stage, you've got 75% of information available to start to populate so that people can start to manage these assets ahead of time or understand the workload involved with managing these assets. And so by the time you get to handover, you've got fully commissioned assets, everybody's happy, you know, the checks are paid, everybody's happy, everybody walks away, you've got a fully functioning building that somebody's maintaining accurately and effectively from day one. Right, great world, perfect world. Okay, so just drilling down a little bit closer. So, you know, you have all of this information available, product data from the manufacturer, it's all there. And it's back to that point as well, in this, I don't really dwell into it in this one, but forcing product manufacturers to provide accurate information about their assets digitally so that you can plug them into the models is really key. And it's about working with the supply chain and getting those guys to give you the information, because if they have the O&M manuals and all the information and the maintenance plans and the health and safety and all the rest of it in the model at this phase, people can start to plan the work further down the road. So, sorry, this is just the information. So back to Birgitte, when she was at Sandia Labs, she did a little straw man, and there's a video on this, and if anybody's interested, you can contact me and I'll find it for you. So she did a little straw man. She did a video. She said, okay, if the maintenance guys can get all the information they need to do a job 5 minutes shorter, you know, it's available on a mobile device, what would that save? So she went out and she asked, she said, how many work orders do we do a year? They said we do 50,000 work orders. So she said, okay, so to be conservative, we'll call it 24,000. And that 5 minutes, what does that actually translate into per work order? They're saying it's up to 2 hours per work order. So you do the maths, and for Sandia Labs, the potential saving just, you know, on the back of a napkin is like 2.4 million a year. I mean, that's massive. Huge, just by being able to have accurate information about your assets and where they are. Another case study in Japan. So a construction company was mandated to do this BIM to FM integration and provide the qualitative benefit for the client. And this was just about virtual handover. And you know, they were able to, they achieved the whole concept. It's a few years old now, and they were able to reduce the maintenance costs by 20%. So again, big savings, you know. And also, it's only made possible by having the FM team in the room talking at the beginning of the process. Again, so this is main general health. So again, extending the 3D BIM model process into the operate phase. What did that save them? Well, that saved them 600 staff hours, okay, from having the automated flow of asset information into their systems. And it eliminated, I mean, it's just a real, I mean, the storage for the paper records, they were able to use that space for something else, you know, it's like, this is a small one. So I'm going to now look at CFOs, sorry, corporate real estate people. So we did a study last year with 150 corporate real estate executives on how they manage their real estate, because these are the guys, these are the people at the end of the day we are building for, right? So these are the guys that take it over and manage it for their business, everything. And just to qualify this, all the respondents were at companies with annual revenues in excess of $1 billion. So these are big companies, right? And 75% of them were outside, managed properties outside of the US, so it wasn't just US based. So, you know, we've turned a corner with the global finance crisis, and companies are now looking again at growing, okay? And when they grow, that means that they are going to need more space, 9 times out of 10. So 50%, 56% were saying, yeah, we're looking to grow in the next few years. And 23% were going to do this through expanding their business. 21% were going to improve profitability, and 11% were going to increase revenue. But even though they're growing, they still got to keep a handle on costs. So, you know, it's still a big challenge for corporate real estate people, because corporate real estate is like up there as, you know, it depends who you talk to, you know, marketing, headcount, and real estate. If you have a building, it's costing you money. Okay, and if you have a building that's empty, it's still costing you money. Okay, so it's a very, very big cost. So it's got to be balanced. You know, they've got to make sure that it's cost effective, that they have the right size of portfolio. So right sizing is critical. They've got to get a really good balance between how much real estate they need and you know, against their workforce. But they're saying that technology is an enabler, okay? So then your ears start to prick up. You say, okay, so these corporate real estate guys are no longer just counting their beans. They're actually looking at technologies that enable them to achieve these objectives. And so they're going to be looking at data, and they want data-rich environments to enable them to really dig in to their portfolios. So the future, so we saw a few years ago, everybody was allowed to work from home. We had flexible working. Now people like Google are saying, well, actually, you know, we're losing teaming. You know, people are losing the sense of identity in terms of the company. We'll start to invite people back. So it's a big, you know, change in the way that people are working and the way that space is using. So this is taken into consideration. So what these executives are saying is that, you know, whilst they have these portfolios of real estate, they have to make sure that it's correctly utilized. And if they don't need it, then they need to get rid of it because it's a cost. So how can the building information modeling process help corporate real estate executives? Well, what we're doing is we're creating a digital footprint of the building. So we all have a digital footprint, and I heard something really freaky the other week that all of this tweeting and Facebook and LinkedIn is developing our digital footprint, our personal digital footprint that will remain forever. And down the line, what they're saying is that we will be able to create avatars. Our future relatives will be able to create avatars of us and have conversations with us, right? Okay, based on our sentiments and everything that our digital footprint. So the buildings, we're creating a digital footprint of the buildings, right? That is going to be around forever. So let's get it right. It's a digital representation, okay? So it's the foundation building blocks of the Internet of Things for buildings. So we're on this threshold of this massive explosion in computing history. You know, there's 9 billion devices around the world at the moment, and if it depends who you talk to, you know, it's going to increase to 50 billion devices, to 1 trillion devices, and it's going to generate an economy of like 2.7 trillion to 6.2 trillion by 2025. And the construction industry and the building industry are part of that journey, a part of the Internet of Things. There's a bit of money there to be got. And, you know, we're coming on this journey. And today we have this cloud base and people are feeding into this kind of, you know, this central place. But the prediction is that, you know, it'll all be open access and devices will be speaking to devices. You know, your watches will be making friends with each other kind of thing as you walk past each other, you know. It's like all this information is going to come from the edge and not just from the databases that we have. And so as every object is becoming instrumented, it's a source of data. Okay, so if you think about just in this room, the amount of sensors that are in this room that's just controlling the temperature, controlling the CO2 levels, you know, each object is a massive source of data. And it's how do we tap into that? How do we, as business leaders, tap into the Internet of Things and make a business from it? So, you know, you have to be thinking about, what can I touch? What value add can I give to my clients? You know, is it down to tracking products and making sure they get on site on time, and when they're on site on time, that they're not getting wet, you know, that they're in the right place, that we can track them, just things like that, just to start to think about the connectivity of all of this and how people use it. So getting feedback on how people are using the building that you constructed is really valuable, even if it's from Twitter. You know, if you have an account that, you know, okay, we constructed this building, and you can hear people's sentiments as they walk past it, you can start to understand, okay, you know, maybe we're not doing a good job here, maybe you know, we're blocking roads or whatever, we're causing a disruption, or it's really positive, wow, that looks great, it looks like it's going to be a great building. But just to get sentiment, to understand how you can reach out beyond where you are. And then you can start to drive, you know, you can predict and prevent events from happening. And you can optimize things, so you can, you know, have optimal workflows, etc. And so on and so forth. Yeah, I won't go into this in much detail, but the ultimate aim is to use this data in a new way and drive new business models for yourselves. Go into areas where, you know, you're uncomfortable and drive new revenue for yourselves. And as was said earlier, you know, the technologies are converging. So you've got the data, you've got the cloud, and you've got engagement from different parts of society, okay? And it's taking advantage of that. And as I said, you know, objects will start to communicate with each other. It's coming, you know, it really is already. Talk about connected cars. You can get a fully functional 3D printed connected car now. I'm not going to drive it, but anyway, you know, you can get it. It's coming down the line. And medical devices, you know, you get something put inside yourself and they can monitor your health, or, you know, monitor the performance of that shoulder or wherever it is you've had replaced. So the potential, you know, lies within the intelligence, really. So what am I learning here? There's no point just having this data. So, you know, there's no point having loads and loads and loads of data, and you're the only one that, you know, you're analysing it, and you're, okay, look, that's happening and this happening. If you don't do anything with it, nothing's going to change. So you have to, how do I use this? What, you know, what am I learning? How do I improve? You know, why did it happen? You know, what action should I take? All these questions. What could happen? What is happening? All this information is really, really valuable. And it's just harnessing the power of the data and the analytics to drive insight. I thought this was mad, like 60% of data loses its value within milliseconds. So that's the 6 months idea gone out the window. Like milliseconds, it's like, you know, there's a ton of information, but you don't want to overload yourself either. So you can subscribe to data. You know, you can say, okay, this is the data I want, give me this data and give me at this frequency. It doesn't have to be like whoosh, I want everything. You need to be a bit smart about it as well. And this digital world that we're going down, I mean, it is exactly as was said earlier. It's about cloud, it's about apps, and it's about services, and it's about engaging everybody, engaging the ecosystem. You know, engaging people you wouldn't normally work with to get the best result and the best value for your customer at the end of the day, and create these new value chains. Oh, have I? Okay, all right. Okay. So if we look at IoT value upstream and downstream, upstream, we in this room are the makers of things. You're making something. You're making a product, right? Let's make it smart. Let's use the data. Downstream, the guy who operates the building is the operator of the thing that you build and make. So you need to be talking. You know, we need to have this communication flow to get the best value. As I said, I'll just... So when you have this digital footprint of a building, and this has kind of been gone over earlier on, it's like understanding, so you've got a very accurate digital representation of a building, so you can make very accurate business decisions on that information, so you can understand where people are flowing. You can make informed decisions. Okay, nobody is going over into the lawn and garden, right? So let's change it into something else. Let's make it a water feature. You know, you have that real-time information about where people are going in your building. In terms of like layering sensor information in your 3D model, you can have 2D layers on a 3D model to understand what's happening. You know, what's the temperature like? Where are people moving? You know, what's the lighting like? And you can make informed decisions very, very quickly. You can look at, you know, where people are actually stationed, drill more into the detail, look at the sensor, use augmented reality to say, okay, you know, we're fine, the temperature's okay there. You know, you can look at the sensors, you can have apps, you know, people are building apps, you can have an app, you know, based on the 3D model information, and you can look at the sensor and get historical and real-time information about that sensor, how is it performing. You can look at your fan coil units in the ceiling. This is a bit of a ski-whiff picture here, but you can look in real time, you know, based on your asset management software, based on your information model, and look at the fan coil units and go, how is that performing in real time? You know, is that the problem of why we're cold in this room? So linking this all together, bringing this information together, managing it, assembling it, and acting on it is the future, is where we're going, and it starts with an accurate representation of that building in a digital format. So I was just going to talk about a softer side of this. So if you have a client and they're a property developer and you create a lovely 3D model for them, they can use this as a marketing tool. They can go out and they can say to their potential customers, this is what the space is going to look like. This is what you will look like in this space. You know, this is what the common areas look like. And by the way, you want to, you know, then the client can ask, you know, who's going to maintain that escalator? How are the windows cleaned? You know, what's the maintenance regime for those plants? All this information, you know, and if the FM person's involved, saying, okay, you know, who's going up there to clean those windows? How often do they need cleaning? You know, never. Once a year. You have to factor that into the costs. You know, what could offices look like? How can my space be configured? So you can do all of this as a marketing tool using a good, accurate model. So to wrap up, start with the end in mind. Start with the, I would like to say, disassembly of the asset, of the building, rather than decommission or destruction. Let's, you know, the circular economy, disassemble it. Where can you use those parts elsewhere? But start with the end in mind. Who's going to operate it? Who's ultimately going to pull this thing down? Who's responsible for that? Get those people engaged early on. Maybe not the people pulling it down, but I got this from Fight Club. I think it's quite good. You know, if you don't know what you want, you're going to end up with a lot. You know, you don't. So, you know, you need to understand what you want, and the employees' requirements records helps that. So, you know, take a step back. You know, engage operations early, engage the people who are going to operate the building early, understand the data requirements. What does that person need to do their job? Okay, what can you give them early in the process that makes their job easier and more effective? And, you know, the clarification of requirements. Get people to understand, as a constructor of a building, it would be good if you could understand from the owner what they're going to do with that building. What do they see? What's their strategic vision for their building? You know, where are they going? So have that clarification of requirements as well. And the FM industry, you know, has a part to play here. They've got to get themselves out of the boiler room and into the boardroom, or around the table at least, you know, having that conversation with the, you know, business leaders, with the construction industry and engineering companies up front. And it's about education and then integration of the data and then driving business value. And that's how you'll see these people coming to the table. And the Internet of Things, it's going to be a connected world. We're seeing this coming down the line. We're seeing sensors everywhere. You know, we've got to embrace that. We've got to harness it. And so, to wrap up, is there a place for building information modeling in the operate phase of a building? And I would argue that there is, most definitely. Thank you.